Hey Ingo, what's the difference between the Nucleus Link and the Kaffelogic Nano? That's the question I heard the most the last days, and therefore I decided to answer it to you in this video. When you're looking at the machines, this is the Nucleus Link, this is the Kaffelogic Nano. It's pretty obvious there is a close partnership between the two companies. The machine has initially been invented by Kaffelogic, and still both machines are being hand manufactured in New Zealand by Kaffelogic. The collaboration between the two companies started about 4 years ago, when the Nucleus team, mainly Sam Cora, was looking for a sample roaster and then found the Kaffelogic Nano roaster, and that's why they get in touch and started to collaborate together. And some fruits of this collaboration have now been adapted to both machines. So for example, a new chaff collector, new heating elements, boards, or some adaptations in the software. But then there are also some differences which are then Kaffelogic or Nucleus specific. And in this video, we are going to have a look at the similarities and the difference between both machines. But let's start with the similarities. And you see the whole construction, so the hardware of the machine is the same. Also the way the machine functions. So it has this fan here, which produces the airflow, sucks the air from the bottom and blows it until the top. It has the heating element, which is really fine, granular and very fast, which is then bringing the air to the necessary temperature. Then it has the roast chamber, which is kind of a cup, which has no mass. The idea behind it is that the whole influence of the heat transfer is coming from the air, so that you can really fine and granular work on heat profiles, and you have no influences from metal or mass in the roast chamber as well. Just this super fast heat transfer from the airflow. And then you have this so-called naked bean probe, which is measuring the bean temperature, but it's constructed in a way that it's really super fast and super precise. And that's the same in both machines. Also with both machines, you have this chaff collector, which is made of glass, so that you can see the coffee roasting process. You have here this little cup where you can take out the chaffs after a roast. With both machines, you have possibility to connect them with the cable to a software. The software is of course free with both machines. It's called Kaffelogic Studio or Nucleus Studio. And you will realize also the basis for the software is the same. And then there are some functions which are then specific for either of the machines. Now let's have a look at the differences between the two machines. And the first thing we are going to have a look at is the amount of beans you can roast. With the Kaffelogic Nano, as it comes, you're going to roast between 90 and 100 grams of coffee. You have the possibility to buy a so-called boost kit, which enables you to roast from 50 to 200 grams of beans. In the Nucleus Link, the boost kit is already included, so you have a range of coffee to roast, but here it's limited to 50 to 100 grams. So the whole machine is optimized for these amounts from 50 grams of green coffee to 100 grams of green coffee. And this is also the typical amount of coffee you get as a sample in coffee production, coffee trading at the roastery. So this 50 to 100 grams of coffee is the usual amount you roast in a sample roaster. With this boost kit function, you are going to tell the machine exactly what amount of beans you're going to put in the machine. The machine is going to adapt the roasting profile. So here you can take any amount between 50 and 100 grams, then calibrate the machine to the amount of beans, and it's going to adapt the roasting profile accordingly. With the Kaffelogic Nano, when you're roasting without the boost kit, it's just going through one roasting profile, no matter what amount of beans you're putting in. So you'll have a little bit of taste differences, but you can also play around with the amount of beans. But also if you're using then the boost kit, which is an accessory for this machine, you also have this granularity, and then you can also define the exact amount of beans you have and calibrate the machine accordingly. Talking about calibration, there is another factor we have to have a look at, because depending on the altitude where you're roasting coffee at, the roast is going to behave differently. And that's why the Nucleus Link has implemented a very simple calibration process. So you have an app, you put in your altitude, then it gives you a value which you can easily enter in the machine. And the machine is then going to calibrate the whole system according to the altitude where you are at. And the reason why they did this calibration process is that the machine is made to be taken, for example, to coffee origin trips. So if you have, for example, a roastery in Hamburg where you're at sea level, but you're going now to Nicaragua or Honduras to search for coffees, you can adapt your machine to the altitude and then do a perfect roast there. And even more so if you, for example, have a partner in one of those countries, you have your roastery in Europe and you want to precisely talk about the taste differences in the coffee. The idea of the machine is that you can then calibrate the two machines, use the same roasting profile, and then you get the same roast and the same taste no matter where you are. And then you can easily communicate between coffee producers, coffee traders, coffee roasteries, and you have a calibrated system. With the Kaffelogic Nano, you could do this fan calibration as well, but it's not that intuitive. So you have the possibility to go into settings, do a fan calibration, but in order to make it really precisely, you would need some measurement device, or you're going to have a look at the movement of the bean. So you have the possibility, but it's just not so much emphasis in the machine. The machine is calibrated in a way that it can be used at any altitude, that is going to produce a nice roast at any altitude, but the roast is going to be different if you're roasting, for example, at sea level or at 1,500 meters above sea level. So if you're roasting the same coffee at different altitudes, you will get a little bit different result, which is usually not an issue if you're just using the machine, for example, in your roastery or at home, and you just want to compare different origins, you still get great results. The big difference in the machines are the profiles and the logic behind profiles. So the Kaffelogic Nano is coming with 12 profiles, and the idea behind the machine is that it's really simple and intuitive for anybody to be used. So you just choose the right profile for your bean according to the altitude where the coffee has grown. And usually you get this information from your green coffee seller. They can give you the altitude where the coffee has been grown. So you just enter this and the machine is doing everything for you. With the Nucleus Link, there are 41 different roasting profiles, and they vary depending on the density of the bean you're roasting and also the processing of the bean. So they're optimized for densities and processing of the beans. And in order to help you finding the right roasting profile, you're initially going to measure the density of the bean. You get all the accessory that's needed for that with the machine. It's not a too difficult process, but still is something you have to do before roasting. You're measuring the density of the bean. You enter this in the app. You also then enter the processing of the machine. The machine is then telling you which roasting profile to use, and then you can enter the roasting profile and do the roast accordingly. In addition to that, you have for each profile 5 different characteristics. And these characteristics are defined in so-called packs. So when you're a bit more into roasting, and you can also have a look at the video I did with Rob House about that, the result of the roasting is differing depending on the amount the bean has been in different stages, like the Maillard stage, the stage before the first crack, or then also the development stage from first crack to the end of the roast. And they adapted those profiles differently so that they get a little bit different result out of it. So you have, for example, one pack which is a really classic cupping profile, but you have also a pack which is then more going into this Scandinavian filter roast or more balanced filter roast, omni roast, or more espresso roast. So again, different characteristica of the roast to play with, so that at the end you have more than 200 roasting profiles you can choose from. With both machines you can choose any roast level or roast color. The logic behind it in the Kaffelogic Nano are so-called roast levels, which then are leading to a different roast color, so a lighter or a darker color of the roast. The color of the roast is actually the factor that influences the taste most. So you can choose this in the Kaffelogic Nano. You could also work with these roast levels in the Nucleus Link, but you have also the options then to work with roast development time percentage. So you can enter different roast development time percentage and then go to a little bit lighter and darker roast. Another feature and difference between the two machines is that when you're marking first crack in the Nucleus Link, it's going to adapt the profiles. So for each profile, there is an assumption of a first crack where it's going to reach first crack. When you mark the first crack, then the machine is comparing, am I in this range or am I out of the range? And if it's out of the range, it's going to automatically adapt the roast profile so that you get then the right roast development time percentage and an adapted profile. It also has the possibility then to get a feedback. So in the app that is coming with the machine, you can, as I said, choose the profile, but you can also after roast go back to the app and then say with which profile you have been working when you've reached first crack, and then the Nucleus database is going to analyze if this has been the perfect roasting profile for you or if it now would recommend another one for this particular bean. And if that's the case, it would recommend you another profile and you can try a roast with another profile and then compare the two roasts. When you're having a look at the softwares the machines are coming with, you also realize that the basis of the software is the same. Kaffelogic Studio and Nucleus Studio have about the same basis, but then they have also some different features that are specific for the two machines. But the similarity with both softwares is that the core functions are the same. So it's a software where you have your database of profiles, you have your profiles saved, you can also adapt the profiles and work on profiles. You have your logs, so you have the roast that you did before saved, so you can analyze your logs and then do also changes to roasting profiles according to the log you have saved. The software is giving you any information on the machine you want. So you have different modes in the software. You can go to engineer mode, and then you get really any value you can imagine from the machine, and then adapt this if you want to fine-tune your machine. If you're a standard user, then usually you're going to simpler modes where you then just have the settings you need to simply and intuitively work with your machine. In addition to this, the Nucleus Studio software has also the possibility to live record your roast. So you can connect it to your computer and then you see on your computer live where in the roast you are. So it's following the curve and gives you live information. You have also a bit more granularities to enter the values for color change, first crack start, first crack end, second crack start, second crack end. And then as said, if you're marking first crack, the system is going to analyze the roasting profile and if needed is going to make changes and immediately adapt the roasting profile according to the information that you have given. The Kaffelogic Studio software is available for Windows, Mac and Linux, and the Nucleus Studio software is available for Windows and Mac. When you're looking at the scope of delivery of the two machines, you see quite some differences. So the Kaffelogic Nano is coming here as a roaster. It's coming with this chaff collector. It's coming with a cable to connect your machine to the computer. And it's coming with a little cup to measure the beans and then fill it into your machine. The machine is being delivered in a sustainable packaging, in a cardboard packaging, which is then also really protecting your machine perfectly during transport. When you're looking at the Nucleus Link, you see the machine, of course, you will get the machine, you will also get the chaff collector. The machine is being delivered in such a strong case. This case is easy to be carried with you. The whole machine with the case weighs about 12 kilos. It's shock absorbent. It's also protecting your machine from rain if you're, for example, outside on a coffee field trip. It's coming with such a cup. It's coming with such a coffee tray and a density tube. The density tube and the coffee tray are needed to measure the density of your bean. It's being delivered also with an USB cable to connect the machine to your computer. And it's coming with a smartphone app, which is giving you the possibilities to measure the configuration value for your machine, as well as the profile, and then also do this feedback loop once you're done a roast to check if the profile was the perfect for you, or if you want to take another profile the next roast. So all in all, looking at the machine, when you're looking at the scope of delivery, of the features, you see the machines are pretty similar. But the Nucleus Link has been designed with more a specific target group in mind, which is coffee producers, coffee traders, coffee roasters, people that want to analyze green coffee and then also communicate together about this green coffee, which have a calibrated system so that no matter where they are, the same roast, and they can then really work on coffees, work on profiles, and deep dive into their green coffee. The Kaffelogic Nano has been developed with a bit broader range of people in mind. Of course, also producers, traders, coffee roasters, they really like the machine, especially if you're using it more on one location, because they still have all these features of the machine, of this very precise, automated, nice roast, where you can just put in your coffees, your samples, and roast it automatically, and then compare them directly on the cupping table. When it comes to home roasters, the Kaffelogic Nano is more intuitive. So still, I'm sure home roasters will use the Nucleus Link as well, but you need to have a particular interest into green coffee. You're going to measure the density of the beans, processing of the beans, while the Kaffelogic Nano, on the other hand, is super intuitive. You actually don't need to know anything about coffee or coffee roasting. You can just take your machine, get a sample of green coffee, put in the right profile according to the altitude where you've been at, and then do an automatic roast, and you get a really nice result in any case. I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope it gave you more clarification than confusion. If you want to know more about those two machines, then have a look at the other videos in our channel or go to our website roasttravels.com, where you find detailed information about the machine, where you of course also can buy both machines. Don't forget to follow our channel because we're posting a lot of videos about coffee roasting equipment, green coffee, but also interviews and knowledge about coffee roasting. And if you have any specific questions, then always come back to me. I look forward to hearing from you, and you find my contact on roasttravels.com.